Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamasyaadilakshyam Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Sadgurum Tam Namami Sadgurum Tam Namami Om Amriteshwari Namaha Om Amriteshwari Namaha Om Amriteshwari Namaha. My humble prostrations to Amma, my humble prostrations to all my sisters and brothers who are watching this. Let us proceed on the journey of bhakti by continuing the exploration of the Narada Bhakti Sutras. Once, two little kids were taken by their parents to the museum. They went to the painting section, and while the parents were busy looking at all the paintings and admiring them, kids being kids, they just wandered off on their own. And they entered into the modern art section of the museum. And they went and saw the main display, the most expensive modern art painting which was on display. These little children, and there was nobody else in that room. These two little children went up to the main display. They looked at the main display, then looked at each other with horror. And the elder one said, "Quick, let's go out of this room, let's run away. You remember the trouble we got into when we did something like this last time in the living room." So the kids ran away from something very, very valuable because of what they thought others would think of them. Similarly, we also run away from something which is very, very valuable just because we may be afraid what others will think of us. Is something which can completely, totally destroy all sorrow from our lives valuable? Is something which can give us eternal satisfaction valuable? Definitely. And this itself is a definition of liberation or moksha, total and permanent destruction of sorrow in our lives. That is, in Sanskrit, Atyantika Dukkha Nivritti, and two, eternal satisfaction, Kritya Krityata. And what will lead us to this liberation or moksha, which is so valuable? Simply put, the answer is Bhakti Marga, or the path of devotion. So let us proceed to understand bhakti and implement it in our lives. And this is where we began with the Narada Bhakti Sutras, with the first sutra last time, Athato Bhaktim Vyakhyasamaha, which means now let us proceed with the exploration of bhakti. In the path of bhakti, it is considered good to be familiar with 4 things before we start the journey and 3 things while actually starting the journey. Before starting the spiritual journey of bhakti or devotion, the 4 things which we have to understand or consider is number 1, the qualified seeker. Who is qualified to undergo or travel this path? In Sanskrit, the qualified seeker is called adhikari. Number 2, the topic, which is bhakti or devotion. The topic is also called vishaya in Sanskrit. Number 3, the benefit or the purpose of bhakti. So the benefit is called prayojana. And number 4, the relationship between these 3, that is the seeker, the topic, and the benefit. So relationship is called sambandha. Let us come to the first, that is the qualified seeker or the adhikari. As we had seen in last time, the qualified seeker is one who has been practicing one of the following 3 steps. 1, seeing every event in life as a blessing. It is also called as prasada buddhi. Number 2, doing action or karma for the sake of the divine. And number 3, being an instrument in the divine's hands. A detailed explanation of these 3 steps was undertaken in the last talk. So, the qualified seeker, adhikari. Now we come to the second point, which is Vishaya or topic, and the topic is Bhakti or devotion. What is this love or devotion? How can we acquire it? Can we acquire it? Once a boy named Nidish went to a gathering of friends and family, and he didn't find anybody interesting. He was just sitting like that, and his mother came to him and said, "Why are you just sitting here? Why are you not with him?" And she pointed out to a boy of the similar age who was wearing a red shirt. "Why are you not with him?" his mother asked. And he said, "I don't know him. Why should I be with him?" Then his mother told him, "Nidish, that is Suresh, your cousin with whom you were very close when you were little kids." Now remember, this story is set in a time before social media was there. There was no emails, no WhatsApp and all those things. So your cousin Suresh, with whom you were so close, he and his family, they migrated to another country, and basically you lost touch, and it's after such a long time they have come here. The moment Nidish heard that this boy in the red shirt was his own cousin Suresh, with whom he was very friendly with, the moment he heard that, he ran towards Suresh, hugged him, and then for the rest of the whole day they were sitting together, catching up, enjoying each other's company. Now what happened here? Did the mother create love in Nidish for Suresh? What happened there? When the mother pointed out his relationship, Nidish's relationship with the unknown person Suresh, and said, "This is Suresh, your cousin," she pointed out the relationship between Nidish and Suresh. Then the love which was inherent in Nidish for Suresh, but which was unmanifest, became manifest. Similarly, when we realize our relationship, we the individual or the jiva, realize our relationship with the world or the jagat and with the divine Ishvara, the love which is inherent in us, bhakti, will manifest. And this is what the Guru does. The Guru points out the true nature of our relationship with the world and Ishvara. And once this relationship is understood, the inherent love, inherent devotion, bhakti which is already within us manifests. This is why Amma always keeps saying the path of bhakti is ideally suited for modern times. She even compares it to the jackfruit tree. Why? Because the jackfruit tree is a tree which is unique because the fruit doesn't necessarily come on the top of the tree. It can even emerge at the bottom of the tree. So similarly, when we traverse on the path of bhakti, love for God, devotion for God, for the divine can emerge as soon as we start traveling on the path of bhakti. Now, let's come to the third point. What are the main benefits, that is the prayojana of bhakti? Now these are indicated by the Narada Bhakti Sutras number 5, 6 and 4. Let me just chant out number 5, then I'll explain the meaning. Similarly, each one of the sutras. Sutra number 5 says, Yat prapya na kinchit vanchati, na shochati, na dveshti, na ramate, na utsahi bhavati. What does this mean? I will give the literal translation, then we'll try to see a bit more in-depth meaning of the sutra. On gaining which one wants nothing, laments over nothing, hates nothing, does not delight in fleeting happiness, and is never obsessed about anything. This is one of the main benefits of bhakti. When, when we say one wants nothing, what it means that when we attain the goal of bhakti, we do not depend on anything external for our happiness. Happiness, we discover that happiness is our true nature. So we require nothing to be happy. And because happiness is our true nature, when fleeting things disappear, they do not cause us any sorrow. Why? Because we don't depend on them for happiness. Similarly, the true devotee hates nothing because he is full of bliss. And he or she does not delight in fleeting happiness. Happiness in the world appears and disappears. He doesn't get overjoyed when happiness appears, and he doesn't get disappointed when the sources of fleeting happiness disappears. Why? Because he or she is reveling in our own self. And finally, they're not obsessed about anything because they know happiness comes from within. This seems, and it is actually a description of Amma's life. When we look at Amma, this sutra describes her. Let us come to the 6th sutra. I'll read it out first. Yat jnatva mattho bhavati stabdho bhavati atma ramo bhavati. What does this mean? Experiencing this devotion, the true goal of devotion, one becomes overjoyed beyond measure. He becomes perfectly still in body and mind. When we see something very beautiful, suddenly what happens? We just freeze for a moment. The body and the mind freezes. That is called stabdho bhavati. Becomes perfectly still. Atma ramo bhavati. And he revels in his own or her own blissful nature. Now we come to the 4th sutra. Yal labdhva puman siddho bhavati amruto bhavati triptho bhavati. What does this mean? On attaining this goal of devotion, one becomes siddho, perfect, amruto, immortal, and tripto, perfectly satisfied. So, just to summarize, these 3 sutras, numbers 5, 6 and 4, are describing moksha or liberation, the main purpose or benefit of traveling on the path of bhakti. Simply put, what is moksha? 1. Total and permanent destruction of sorrow in our life. Atyantika dukkha nivruti. Number 2. Eternal satisfaction. Krita krityata. Now we come to the 4th point. Sambandha or relationship. Relationships of 3 types. 1. The relationship between the benefit of bhakti and the seeker in the path of bhakti was also called the bhakta. So the relationship between the benefit and the seeker. Understanding the benefit of bhakti will inspire the seeker to explore the path of bhakti in depth. So this is the first relationship between benefit and the seeker. The second relationship is between the benefit and the topic, the prayojana and the vishaya. By understanding the topic, the seeker will know how to get the benefit. And number 3, the relationship between the topic and the seeker. Implementing the topic or the subject of bhakti in daily life, the seeker gets the benefit, the prayojana. So, if you recall, I had said there are 2 things we need to know. 1, what to do before actually starting the path of bhakti. Which are the 4 things I mentioned right now? Who's qualified? What is the topic? What is the benefit? And what is the relationship? The second aspect, while actually starting the path of bhakti, or starting the journey, on the journey of bhakti, 3 things have to be considered, have to be familiarized, we have to understand. Number 1 is called Lakshya Bodham, which means a clear, absolutely clear idea of the destination, the goal of the path of bhakti. Number 2 is called Lakshya Marga. That means a very clear idea of the path to be traversed. What is this bhakti? How do we travel? Number 3, it's called Margasthana. That is a clear understanding of our current location. That is, it happens in any journey in life. If you want to reach somewhere, we have to know 1, what is it, where is it that we have to reach, what is the goal. Number two, how do I reach there? And number three, where am I in the current path? Nowadays, we all use, if you want to go current place, it's all computerized now. On the phone you have GPS, the global position system. You want to go somewhere, you start the app, it will show you this is your current location and this is the path you have to take and this is the goal. So in the path of bhakti also we have a GPS which is called the Guru positioning system. The Guru, with her life, teachings and actions, indicates these three things very clearly. What is the path of bhakti, what is the goal of bhakti, the ultimate destination, and where you are, which is very important. We have to know where we are, only then we will be able to travel properly. So let's come to the first point, which is Lakshya Bodham, or the clear idea of what is the destination. And the destination of bhakti or devotion is the state called Parabhakti, supreme devotion, which is the last among three stages in bhakti. We can see when we watch Amma, when we just look at Amma, see what all she is doing, we get a very clear idea of what is Parabhakti. And as we proceed with the Narada Bhakti Sutras, the Narada Bhakti Sutras will share with us Amma's vision, what she sees, because when she is in the ultimate state of bhakti, which is called Parabhakti. There are three stages in bhakti. So this is the path that we have to know very clearly. Three stages in bhakti. So now the first is the goal of bhakti, which is supreme devotion or Parabhakti. And what is the path? There are three stages. Stage number one is called guided bhakti or guided devotion or Vaidihi bhakti or Gauna bhakti. Guided devotion. What is stage two? Spontaneous devotion or main devotion. It is called Raganuga bhakti or Mukhya bhakti. And what is stage three? Stage three is supreme devotion or Parabhakti. We will be introduced to these three as we traverse along the path of the Narada Bhakti Sutras. Now, the third point, understanding our current location, the Margasthana. We all, when we start on the spiritual path, we have very fuzzy ideas. We read, it's not our fault, we are just beginning on the path. We read the lives of different masters and then we think that, and we have our own ideas that bhakti means or spiritual path means ignoring the body and ignoring all the worldly activities. And this is where the role of the Guru comes in. The Guru comes in really, it's very, very important at this point because the Guru is like a mirror. The Guru shows us what is our condition now. Because we have these ideas. Being spiritual means not ignoring the body, ignoring all worldly activities. In fact, if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, which is called Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, in that there are so many beautiful descriptions of what a true devotee should be. In the 16th verse of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there are three words which are very, very important, which are quite relevant here because we have to understand what is our current position or location in the path of bhakti. These three words are Daksha, Shuchi and Udasin. What does Daksha mean? Daksha means skillful, being very, very skillful in our actions. Because normally when some of us, when we enter into the path of bhakti or spiritual, we think, oh, the world is too much, I have to focus on the divine only and I have to ignore the world. That is because of a wrong understanding. What we call the world is also a manifestation of the divine. So whenever we do any worldly transaction, any action, it has to be perfectly skillful. Only then it becomes an expression of bhakti. One of the brahmacharis who was in charge of the kitchen was once telling us, because he was making tea and lot of milk and tea powder was going waste. The expenses because of making tea in the kitchen, the ashram kitchen was going up. So Amma called him to his room, to her room, And Amma actually made tea and showed how much milk to use, how much water to use, how much uh, tea leaves to use. And with exactly the right amount, she made a cup of tea and it tasted so good. Someone was telling it, this is also devotion. It is not just doing something and saving material. It is to do the best possible job with whatever whatever you have in front of you. So you can see daksha, skillful. Even simple thing like making tea has to be done skillfully. This is what am I showing, and am I saying this is also bhakti. Then we come to the second important word, which is called shuchi. Shuchi means cleanliness. Cleanliness, external and internal, both are very important. I remember once, after a long darshan, it went for many hours, more than 12, 13 hours, Amma came out from the darshan hall and she was walking to a room. As she was walking into a room, she looked to the side and there was a sink where food vessels and everything were washed. So she happened to look at that and she saw that the sink was dirty. So in spite of giving hard physical darshan for 13 hours, as she left she was walking very slowly. We could see her body was tired. But when she saw the sink, she went there, she took some cloth and she started cleaning the sink. So everybody, all of us rushed and he said, Amma, no, we will do it. Amma said, no, let me do it, because this is also bhakti. Whenever you see something which is not clean and untidy, you should make it clean and tidy, because it's only external cleanliness which will lead you to internal cleanliness. The shuchi, cleanliness, is a very important point in bhakti. Even in the Yoga Sutras, you can see in one of the Yoga Sutras it is said, Shaucha, it is a niyama, it's a rule which you have to implement in our lives. So cleanliness, skillfulness in action, cleanliness, external and internal, is important. Then the third word, which is udasin. This is a word which is also very important for us to understand the true meaning, the true implication of the word udasin. Normally when we hear the word udasin, it is sometimes translated as indifferent. And we think being indifferent to the world, being indifferent to everybody is spirituality. For example, you can see sometimes when we do some meditation sessions, you see some people come, and we have people coming for meditation sessions from different background, different understanding. So there are some people who have started on the path of spirituality, they have read the life of masters, and they think masters sometimes express different sort of behavior, manifest spontaneous behavior from the different heights of bhakti. But reading some of their lives and part of their lives and not understanding the true implications of the action, some people think, okay, we should not take care of the body, and taking a bath is taking care of the body. So if I am spiritual, I should not take a bath. So you sometimes have meditations, group meditations, and then somebody will come and sit near you, and you will find that such people, they don't take a bath on purpose, maybe for days together, because they think not taking a bath, not taking the care of the body is spiritual. What happens there? So just imagine if you haven't had a bath in 4 or 5 days, especially in a humid country like India, what happens? You start smelling and stinking. So what is the final benefit or the effect of not taking a bath for 4 or 5 days? Neither can they meditate, the person who didn't take the bath, and unfortunately, people like us who are sitting around them, they also cannot meditate because of this stink. It is true, certain great masters during the course of their spiritual evolution may have exhibited behavior when they are totally oblivious of the body, hence they don't even take a bath. But such masters are different. And the behavior that they exhibit is not something we can imitate. Such things like that happen spontaneously. I remember many years ago, before joining the ashram, I happened to see a siddha, a highly evolved soul. I went and sat near him for some time. He didn't speak. He was just wearing a loincloth, and he was just sitting the whole time with his eyes closed. And I sat there for a long time, very near him. I felt very peaceful. And when I left, the person who was accompanying me told me, "Do you know something about this person?" I said, "I know, you just took me, I just sat, I felt nice. I don't know much, anything about him." He said, "This Siddha, or this evolved being, he just sits the whole day. Maybe once in 2 or 3 days he eats if somebody gives him, and they have to sort of force him to eat. And the most important and the most incredible thing is he never takes a bath." And I found that amazing. Why? Because I was sitting very near to him, and there was no smell or stink from the body. So when highly evolved souls exhibit certain behavior, it is spontaneous. But if we try to imitate the behavior without understanding and not taking a bath, we end up being a nuisance for ourselves and others around us. So here, this is a very, very important point, because in the 15th verse of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita on devotion, there are two very important points. Yasmat lokaha na udvichade. That means, from whom the world is not disturbed. That means, if you are on the path of devotion, we should never ever be a source of disturbance for anybody else, knowingly or unknowingly. Now, the person who doesn't take a bath on purpose thinking that is spiritual, that is on purpose. But sometimes unknowingly we become a source of disturbance. We have to be very, very careful. For example, another thing is, sometimes when we meditate, nowadays the situation has changed. The earlier days when you used to meditate, people used to sit and do japa, and instead of using a japa mala, in those days many of the people visiting the ashram had mechanical clickers. So when they would chant a mantra, they would click. So after some time they would know how many mantras they have chanted. Now that is fine if you're sitting alone without anybody, but if you're sitting in a group and meditating, just imagine you're trying to meditate and 10-15 clickers are going on, click, 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 click. It's a source of disturbance for the people who are trying to meditate. Nowadays, this problem doesn't arise because everybody who uses these counters, they have digital counters. So even if you press the button, it doesn't make any sound. But those mechanical clickers used to make a lot of sound. So when we tried to meditate, we could hear 10 or 15 or 20 different clickers going click, 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 click. So now these people are not doing it on purpose. They don't want to disturb anybody. They want to meditate. But they are not aware that even such a simple thing can be a source of disturbance. And you can see that this thing, from whom the world is not disturbed, Amma practices this and just demonstrates this in every action that she does. You can see, while Amma gives darshan for a long time, sometimes because Amma keeps people's heads on her shoulder, after some time her sari becomes sometimes stained because of the people keeping her head. For Amma, it is not a source of discomfort. She is beyond smell, taste, all this. It doesn't affect her at all. But she goes, after some time, she goes and changes her sari so that this stain, she puts on a new sari so that there's no stain seen. Why does she do that? Amma is not affected by this. But sometimes when people come to Amma and they come for darshan, they see the stain and they feel a bit queasy. So Amma doesn't want them to get disturbed by that. So Amma is so careful. Even if Amma doesn't change her sari, people will come because they all love coming for Amma's darshan. But just Amma is careful that some new person may come, he or she may feel, oh, this is not good. So Amma is taking care of that. That means from whom the world is not disturbed. I remember once after one public program somewhere, Amma went to a house visit, and the lady of the house made some tea for Amma. And Amma sipped the tea once, and then she started drinking the whole cup fully. Now the lady of the house, she had a desire. She wanted to taste at least a little of the tea which Amma had drunk. So when Amma was about to finish the cup, she tried to take the cup from Amma's hand. Amma was trying to finish, but she lovingly took the cup from Amma's hand. So there was just a few drops of that tea remaining, and she kept it aside. So after Amma left her house, the lady went back and took the cup from which Amma had drank, and she wanted to sip the few drops of tea which Amma had drunk. And when she tasted the tea which she had prepared for Amma and which Amma almost had fully drunk, she was astounded. Why? Because the taste of the tea was not what she had expected. She had lovingly prepared that tea for Amma with love and devotion, but unfortunately, because of her excitement that Amma had come to her home and she was thinking and planning of things, instead of putting sugar in the tea, she had put salt in the tea. So when Amma sipped the tea, she understood the mistake. So what she did, instead of throwing the tea away, she wanted to finish the whole tea so that the lady of the house, she knew the lady of the house would want to taste the tea, which she left something behind in the tea. So this is why Amma drank the whole tea, because she understood that if the lady of the house tasted the tea which Amma drank, she would be so sad that she gave Amma tea with salt instead of sugar. So Amma didn't want her to be disturbed. One from whom the world is not disturbed is a devotee or is a bhakta, one who is either perfect who has reached the goal of devotion or who is traveling on the path of devotion. Such a person never is a source of discomfort to the world. Now we come to the second part, which is lokan no udvijate, which means whom the world does not disturb. This is also very important. For Amma, nothing in the world disturbs her. I remember many years ago when some of the senior Swamis of the ashram were getting their sannyasa robes, they were being initiated into sannyasa. They would spend the whole day fasting and meditating. Next day early morning was supposed to be their sannyasa diksha or the initiation into sannyasa. The night before that, Amma, that was many years ago, night before that, Amma came to the ashram septic tank. In those days, the toilet system was extremely rudimentary. There was a septic tank in which all the fecal matter, all the waste matter would be collected, and it would have to be manually removed. It was in those days. Now all those things have changed. So in those days, we would have to manually remove all the fecal matter, all the waste in the septic tank. And the night before the sannyasa diksha, Amma came and she started scooping out all the waste and disposing of it. And she called. She said, call all the senior swamis who are getting initiated and let them also do this. They had spent the whole day fasting, praying, meditating, being in an extremely spiritual mode. And Amma wanted to convey to them that the highest form of spirituality is accepting the world as it is, not getting disturbed by any condition of the world. So it was an extremely valuable lesson, spiritual lesson that Amma was teaching. Lokan no udvijate. That means whom the world doesn't disturb. I remember once I had to give a satsang on the stage. It was a public program. Amma was arriving after my satsang. So I was sitting next to Amma's pitham or seat, and I was giving a satsang. I spoke for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And just as I finished, Amma entered the stage and she came near me. And she looked at her pitham or her seat where she was sitting, and she asked me, "What is that?" So just right next to where I was sitting, and I was sitting there for half an hour to 45 minutes, and I didn't notice it. It was just a small thing. It was some lizard droppings. And I looked at it, and I moved my hand to remove it because it was an Amma's pitham. Then Amma told me, don't remove it, let it be there. You don't get your hands dirty. But of course, that was one time when I didn't listen to Amma. I cleaned the lizard droppings because I had nothing. I just used my hand and removed it. Now, just imagine, Amma didn't want me to remove the lizard dropping. Amma is going to sit there, do prayers, meditation, everything, bhajans from that Peetam. And if it were you or me, if we are sitting and meditating and there is some droppings or something on our seat, we would not be able to meditate or do anything. We would always be thinking, why is that thing there? I should clean it. But for Amma, it made no difference. Amma was trying to convey that as a spiritual seeker, you should not allow the world to disturb you. Amma uses the example. You can use a boat and be in the water. The boat can be in the water, but the water should not enter the boat. We can be in the world, do activities, but we should not let the world affect us. So this is also a very important point on the path of bhakti. So when we look at the word udasin, we may feel udasin means to be indifferent, but actually udasin is a very, very powerful spiritual concept. Udasin is something we use to go deeper into a sadhana. Actually, the word udasin means unprejudiced. Ut plus asin. Ut means above, asin means to be seated above. So when we are in the seat of meditation, no sound, no smell should affect us. So once we understand what udasin means, even if you are sitting in meditation, people around you have not had a bath, the smell is coming, we should take it as an option not to complain about them and think why are they not having a bath. We should take it as an opportunity that this is something for us to go udasin, go above this source of disturbance, go into a deeper state of meditation where we are so focused within, no external sound like the mechanical clicker or the smell affects us. Ut asin. So ut asin means not indifferent, it means not prejudiced. This is the right understanding of udasin. So this is where, when we observe Amma's life, when we read her teachings, we understand that these two things, Amma is very, very gently and skillfully leading us to. One, letting not the world affect us, and two, we should not disturb anybody in the world, knowingly or unknowingly. So let us conclude this satsang on the Narada Bhakti Sutra here. Just to summarize, before starting on the path of devotion, we need to be aware of four things. One, the seeker's qualities. Two, the topic of devotion. Three, the benefit of devotion. Four, the relationship between the seeker, the topic and the benefit. And while starting on the path of bhakti, we have to have a very clear understanding of the goal, Lakshya Bodha. Two, we have to have a very clear understanding of the path of bhakti, the different stages of bhakti, Lakshya Marga. And three, and very, very important, we have to have a very clear understanding of Marga Sthana, or our current position in where are we in the path of bhakti. May Amma's grace and blessings be on all of us. Om Amriteshwaraya Namaha.